Ambassador Marc GInsberg is on the line with us, former U.S. Ambassador to Morocco and Deputy Senior Advisor to the White House on Middle East policy, supporter of Hillary Clinton and HillaryClinton.com. You can tweet him at AMBMCG, as in Ambassador Marc C. GInsberg. Ambassador GInsberg, welcome to the program.
Good to be with you.
Great to have you with us. So what's your take on the state of the race right now? Where are we at? What's going on?
Well, unfortunately, there's too many polls that I see in the battleground states that are too close for comfort. And it's quite clear that about 5 or 6 states at this point in time are going to be the major focus of attention. I wish I owned a TV or radio station in some of these battleground states.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on these reports that the Gary Johnson campaign, they've got this SuperPAC, this purple PAC, that appears to be funded by interests affiliated or associated with the Koch brothers, has so far spent, I guess, $800,000 to get Gary Johnson elected, and that they're specifically targeting 5 must-win states, Hillary Clinton must-win states, with the theory that if they can pull enough votes away from Hillary, they can get us to 270 to 270, which throws the election to the House. And Gary Johnson somehow thinks that the Republicans who control the House will make him president.
Gary Johnson also didn't know where Aleppo was and couldn't name a foreign leader that he respected. And he seems to be someone who is adrift, more or less, in policy debate and discussion. But be that as it may, it doesn't surprise me that the Koch brothers are supporting him. After all, they do support the idea of the government being out of the lives of Americans, and that's exactly what a libertarian candidate is promoting. At the same time, I was Vice President Al Gore's national security co-director in his presidential campaign. I have a complete vilification mentality towards the likes of people like Ralph Nader. And so it's very possible that the ego trips that Mr. Johnson and his cohorts are engaged in could very well throw this election or at least challenge it. Look at the number. Look at his polling numbers right now in some of the battleground states. He's polling 6-7%. That's extraordinarily disappointing for those of us who don't want to see a third-party candidate, in effect, tip the balance one way or the other.
Yeah, and he's apparently doing that. I mean, it appears that he's pulling heavily from. In fact, they have come right out and said that they're targeting states that are rich in disgruntled Sanders voters. So it seems to me that the Clinton campaign really needs to be making a positive, affirmative case for her candidacy to millennial voters. Do you disagree?
Well, indeed. And that's one of the reasons why Senator Sanders was out campaigning with her the other day, because when you dissect some of the polling data, Gary Johnson is actually pulling a significant number of millennial voters who had supported President Obama, as well as Senator Sanders, that are not gravitating towards Mrs. Clinton. And we know 2 or 3 or 4 points of those millennials can make the difference in a battleground state.
Yeah, it's really and truly remarkable. Ambassador, we're talking about Ambassador Marc GInsberg, former U.S. Ambassador to Morocco, Deputy Senior Advisor to the White House on Middle Eastern policy. Final question, your thoughts on Donald Trump getting up at 3 a.m. to do a tweet storm attacking this young woman for having what he calls a sex tape. She was in a sex scene in a TV show that was played on Spanish television, and calling her names and things. I mean, does that do anything to calm the concerns of people who think that he might be unstable, or that he might be a misogynist?
Someone should take his phone away from him and put it in a lockbox.
I think so. Yeah, it was
keep away from him for from 5 a.m. onward.
Yeah, John Podesta tweeted back at him, I'm about your age and I know about waking up in the middle of the night, but don't go near your phone.
Yep.
It's dangerous. Go ahead.
Just to finish that point, look, we've seen these tweet storms that he's engaged in when he can't accept the proposition that he may have made a terrible error of judgment, which he could never acknowledge. So instead of acknowledging his errors of judgment, his lack of temperament, his constant deceit, his engagement with all sorts of chicanery, he always goes on the attack. So he'll belittle anybody. We've seen this throughout his campaign. He's a man who really does not have the temperament as much as the shall we say, the presence of mind to be a commander-in-chief.
Yeah, well said. Very well said. Ambassador Marc GInsberg, former U.S. Ambassador to Morocco and Deputy Senior Advisor to the White House on Middle East Policy. Ambassador GInsberg, thanks so much for dropping by today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great afternoon. We'll be back with your calls here on Anything Goes Friday on the Thom Hartmann program. Stick around.